Hi, I'm Lourdes. At the family gathering, my mother stood up, pointed at me, and called me an ungrateful daughter because I didn't pay for their luxury vacation. Then she kicked me out, in front of everyone. No one said a word, not even my sister, the one who got all the praise after she spent my money for years. But what they didn't know was that I had every receipt. And by morning, 49 missed calls. Want to know why? Before we dive in, let us know, what time are you listening to this and where from? Drop a comment. We read everyone. I arrived 10 minutes late, not because I wanted attention, but because the train from Oak Park was slow and my heels weren't made for icy sidewalks. My palms were damp against the envelope in my coat pocket, the kind of envelope that doesn't sparkle or crinkle. It just holds a message, handwritten, folded once. The banquet hall they rented looked decent enough. Crepe paper streamers in gold and maroon dangled from the ceiling fans, and an all-you-can-eat pasta buffet wafted something tomatoey into the air. Folding chairs were packed wall to wall. Someone had tried to make it feel special, but the lighting was too harsh and the air too warm. I offered a smile as I walked in, said, "Hi, Uncle Pete," and gave a small wave to Aunt Carla. Most nodded. No one stood. Sharon's laugh rang through the room before I saw her. She stood near the head table, flanked by two of our cousins, showing something on her phone, probably the resort in Turks and Caicos she'd gifted Mom and Dad for their anniversary. Her blazer shimmered under the fluorescence, and her diamond studs winked like they knew something. "Madeline, you made it," my mom said without looking directly at me. She stood at the microphone, a stemless glass of wine in hand. Just in time. I found my seat, the one farthest from the cake table, and pulled the envelope from my pocket. It wasn't much. Just a note, a simple thank you to them for existing, I suppose. I'd spent more than I should last month replacing their furnace filter and paying their copay, but those weren't gift-wrapped. I slid the envelope beneath the edge of the centerpiece and settled into the metal chair. It wobbled slightly. Mom tapped her glass. "Everyone, if I could just have a moment." She straightened her blouse like she was about to accept a Lifetime Achievement Award. "We're so lucky to have family here tonight, and I want to especially thank Sharon for making all this possible. That resort gift? I mean, who does that?" She smiled wide. "She is truly the backbone of this family. Selfless, successful, generous." Sharon smiled graciously, dabbing the corner of her eye like it was too much. Some clapped. I swallowed hard. Then Mom turned, eyes narrowing on me. "And, of course," she said with a breathy laugh, "Madeline has brought us a little something as well." I froze. She reached for my envelope like it was a prop in a play. "Let's see what thoughtful treasure she's tucked in here." The room went quiet. Someone coughed. She opened the flap, tilted the envelope upside down, and let nothing fall onto her open palm. Nothing. I guess sometimes a blank card is a symbol of effort, or lack of it. Her voice had gone sharp, amused. A few chuckles broke out, awkward ones. My ears burned. I wanted to disappear. "Maybe it's conceptual," Sharon quipped from the table, not missing a beat. "Like symbolic minimalism." Another wave of laughter. I looked at my dad. He stared down at his plate like he'd found religion in the green beans. What no one knew, what they didn't care to know, was that I'd written a heartfelt note the night before. But as I rushed out the door this morning, the card slipped from the counter. The envelope was still in my coat pocket, ready. But my mind, tired and cluttered from 2 jobs and a last-minute grant proposal, forgot the insert. I realized something then. Mom must have peeked. She had to have checked before the speech. This was deliberate. I stood, clutching my coat. I didn't speak, didn't cry. I just needed air. But before I could slip past the tables, her voice rang out again, this time sharp, commanding. "You walk out like you've done something for this family?" She spat, pointing toward the door. "Sit down. This is why people call you ungrateful." The room fell into a hush. Even the clink of cutlery stopped. My niece, Sharon's youngest, looked up from her iPad and blinked at me, like she wasn't sure what side to be on. My knees locked in place. I stared at Mom, then around at the room of people I'd known all my life, each suddenly more stranger than kin. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I just walked. The cold outside cut through my coat, but it felt cleaner than the air in that room. The snow crunched under my boots as I made my way to the bus stop. No one followed. Back home, I kicked off my shoes, turned on a single lamp, and sat at my desk in silence. The envelope sat in my coat pocket, still empty. Or maybe not. Maybe it was full of everything I'd stopped saying. I opened my banking app. Mom's prescription copay? Canceled. Dad's car lease payment? Canceled. Niece's online tutoring? Canceled. No announcement. No fireworks. Just a quiet click and confirmation. I leaned back in my chair and whispered to the room, to no one. Ungrateful? Fine. I'll show you what that really feels like. The silence didn't last long. At exactly 6:13 a.m., my phone buzzed so violently on the nightstand, it jolted me awake like a fire alarm. I blinked, still groggy, and squinted at the screen. 49 missed calls. From 4 different numbers, Mom's, Dad's, Sharon's, even my niece's high school number for some reason. For a moment, I just stared at it. No panic, no dread. Just a strange sort of stillness in my chest, like my body already knew what was coming and decided not to flinch. I slid the phone into my palm, opened the voicemail tab. The first was from Mom, her voice sharp and clipped. "I can't believe you would do this. What kind of daughter lets her family go without basic support?" Beep. Next one. Same number, different tone, sobbing. "I'm sick. I didn't think you'd actually go through with it." Beep. The third was soft and unnervingly polite. "Sweetheart, if this is about last night, we were just joking. Sharon didn't mean it. Call me back, okay?" Before I could process any of that, a new text banner popped up. Sharon. Was that necessary? That was all she wrote. 4 words, without punctuation, like I'd keyed her car over a misunderstanding. I didn't bother responding. I opened the thread, stared at it for a second, then hit delete. Outside, the early spring sun was starting to push through my blinds. I pulled myself up, dragging the comforter with me like armor. My apartment was quiet, too quiet for a morning that had already started burning. A few minutes later, my phone rang again. I let it go to voicemail. Then it rang once more. Mom, again. Then a flurry of texts buzzed in. Mom, pharmacy said the copay card was declined. I need my heart meds. What is going on? Mom, you do realize this is dangerous, right? I could die. Dad, Toll Pass didn't work this morning. What the hell happened? Niece, Ava. Auntie? Ms. Gomez said I can't come to tutoring this week. Did I mess up? Are you mad at me? My fingers trembled slightly, not from guilt, but from restraint. They were unraveling fast, like a house that suddenly realized the foundation was gone. I'd been the quiet scaffolding for years, groceries here, copays there. I paid for Dad's lease because his credit had tanked after some bad investments, though no one ever talked about that out loud. I covered Ava's tutoring because Sharon said it wasn't in their budget that month, which somehow became every month. Never once did I get a thank you card. Never even a verbal acknowledgement. It was all implied, a duty cloaked in silence. And now, with a single move, I'd pulled the cord. Then, among the whirlwind of panic and blame, one text caught me off guard. Aunt Deborah. About time someone stood up to her. Proud of you. P.S. Call me, but not on speaker. Deborah, the black sheep, the one everyone whispered about but never invited. She'd walked out on the family 20 years ago after an argument no one ever fully explained. According to Mom, she'd burned bridges. According to Dad, she'd lost touch with reality. But according to me, right now, she might be the only one who ever truly saw things for what they were. I didn't call her back. Not yet. But her message felt like a hand on my back when the world turned away. Just before lunch, another notification blinked in. This time, it was an email from Mom. Subject line, "Re, what you've done." I opened it, half expecting more pleas, but it was something else entirely. You've always been selfish. You think money replaces love? No child leaves her mother without medicine and heat. You've emotionally abused us for years with your cold distance. Don't act like a martyr now. You've always been like this." I read it 3 times, then read it again, slower. Cold distance? I'd canceled my own weekend plans for the past 2 years just to drive her to doctor's appointments. I'd taken vacation days to sit with her during tests and blood draws she never remembered scheduling. I'd paid for the oil heater last winter when the furnace broke, and I'd never once said a word about any of it. Dad followed up a few minutes later. "You could have talked to us before lashing out like this." It was stunning, how quickly the silence twisted into accusation, how love, when conditional, turned feral the moment the faucet ran dry. I closed my laptop and leaned back on the couch, staring at the ceiling. For a moment, I couldn't tell whether I was more tired or more angry. Maybe both. A memory flickered. 2 winters ago. Sharon had called me in a rush, saying she'd forgotten to refill Mom's prescription before flying out to Florida. "Could you just handle it?" "I'd owe you one," she said, half laughing. There was no one to collect. I drove 30 minutes in a snowstorm, waited in line for 45, and paid out of pocket. That was the first time I ever thought, if I don't do this, no one will. And yet, all it got me was an empty envelope and a room full of averted eyes. I walked to the window, coffee mug in hand. Outside, the street was already alive with Monday bustle. Neighbors scraping frost off windshields, dogs tugging their leashes, kids in mismatched jackets waiting for the bus. The normal world. I opened a blank document on my laptop, paused for a breath, then started typing, "They don't want me. They want what I give. I gave them everything, so I'm done." I saved it as exitplan.docx and shut the lid quietly. It wasn't rage that filled me now. It was clarity. That night, I hardly slept. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my body still but my mind on fire. I kept hearing Sharon's last message, "You wanted out? Stay out?" And then silence. It echoed louder than any insult ever could. By the next morning, I knew I needed air, something normal. So during lunch, I stepped out of the office and walked over to a small cafe near the park, same one I'd gone to for years. I ordered my usual chamomile tea and sat down by the window, hoping the warm drink would anchor me. I'd barely taken a sip when I heard, "Well, if it isn't Melanie Winters." I looked up. Mrs. Levin, our old neighbor from Naperville, stood by my table, beaming. Her white curls were just as neat as I remembered, and she held a to-go cup in one hand, a canvas bag in the other. "Oh, wow. Hi, Mrs. Levin." I smiled, genuinely surprised. She pulled out a chair without asking. "You look good, sweetheart. I ran into your mother at the nail salon 2 weeks ago. She said you were busy with work. And then, of course, I saw the photos. That Maldives trip? Just stunning." I paused, confused. "Photos?" "Oh, on Facebook. Your sister posted the whole album. Your mom said it was a gift, from you. She told me you surprised them all with the trip. I thought that was just the sweetest thing. Very big-hearted of you, Melanie." I blinked. "Wait, what?" Mrs. Levin chuckled. "Sharon said you paid for everything. Flights, resort, the whole 9 yards. She said it was your way of making peace." I felt the bottom drop out of my stomach. My hands gripped the edge of the table. "I didn't. Oh dear," she said slowly, brows knitting. "Did I get that wrong?" I forced a smile somehow. "No, you're fine. Thank you for telling me." She left soon after, probably sensing the shift in my face. I sat there, tea forgotten, brain reeling. Did I pay for that trip? Back at my apartment, I dropped my keys on the counter and went straight to my desk. I opened my secure banking app, heart pounding harder with each click. It didn't take long. I searched transactions from a year ago, the time Sharon had said Mom needed help with roof repairs. That's when I found it. Elite Travel Group LLC, $6,143, $27 my name, my account, my money. I stared at the screen like it might change. But there it was. I had paid for the Maldives trip, without knowing, and they'd let me sit alone at Thanksgiving, ridiculed me for being selfish. all while sipping cocktails on a beach I funded. A noise escaped me, half laugh, half gasp. I covered my mouth. I thought about the check I'd written, a blank one. Mom had asked, "Just for the roofer, honey. Sharon will handle the details." I'd signed it without blinking, just like always. Now everything clicked. Sharon had handled the payments, and Sharon had told the story, their story, while I'd been here working late, skipping vacations, trying to stay out of the way. My hand moved before my head did. I called Mom, straight to voicemail, then I texted Sharon. "Did you ever tell Mom who really paid for that vacation?" I watched the screen. 10 minutes. 15. Finally, "You wanted out. Stay out." That was it. No denial, no explanation, just a wall. I tossed my phone on the couch and paced. My heart was thudding in my throat. I opened my drawer, where I'd stored every receipt, tax record, donation letter, and now, travel transactions. I went deeper, back through emails, online bank records, and my digital notebook. There it was, year after year, my name on pharmacy bills, tutoring fees, utility co-payments. And next to all that, Sharon's emails to the family group chat. I covered the pharmacy again. "Don't worry, I paid the toll fine, got it handled." I added Auntie's name to the gift card too. I had been their silent wallet. She had been the public face of generosity. I sank into my couch, my legs finally giving up. For years I told myself I was helping, that staying quiet kept the peace. But now, it didn't feel noble, it felt stupid and used. I grabbed my laptop and opened a blank document. At the top, I typed in bold, "This is what happened." But I didn't write it for them, not for Mom, not for Sharon. This one wasn't going to be another invisible act of kindness. This was for someone else, someone who needed to know the truth one day, someone who'd ask why I stopped picking up the phone, why I stopped smiling in family photos, why I left. And maybe, just maybe, it was for me too. I had barely saved the draft when a new email pinged. The subject line read, "Legal inquiry, urgent response needed." And that's when I got the email that changed everything. I was still staring at the blinking cursor on my half-written letter when the email landed. The subject line read, "Beneficiary confirmation, trust amendment processed." My first instinct was to delete it. Spam, maybe. But then I saw the sender's name, Charles Greaves. Mr. Greaves had handled our father's finances for over 20 years. He was the kind of man who wore wool vests in July and always added, "Hope the family is well," to his messages. Even now. I clicked. "Dear Ms. Conway, just confirming the beneficiary update for the Conway Family Trust was completed as requested 6 months ago. If this change was not initiated by you, please contact our office immediately. Regards, Charles Greaves, Managing Advisor, Greaves and Holton Asset Group." My hands froze above the keyboard. I blinked, rereading the words slowly. Beneficiary update. 6 months ago? What change? I clicked the thread open and scrolled down. Attached was a scanned form, signatures, date stamps, formal language. One line caught my eye and held it like a vice. Updated primary beneficiaries, Sharon Conway and Carol Conway. All other named parties removed per Section 4A, Clause 2. I couldn't hear anything except my pulse hammering in my ears. Removed. I hadn't signed anything. No one had called me. No discussion. No warning. I had just disappeared from my father's final gift. For a moment, I couldn't even move. Then I stood abruptly, the chair screeching across the floor, and paced to the kitchen, my mind flailing for logic, for memory. I poured a glass of water and barely tasted it as a memory surfaced, unbidden. Dad, sitting on the porch after mowing the lawn, a towel slung over his shoulder, had said, "I don't want money to come between you girls. It's just paper. What matters is you both feel seen." He had worked 38 years in the same insurance office, socking away that trust account bit by bit for our futures. Back then, the account had a note beside it, to be divided equally between Melanie Conway and Sharon Conway upon my passing. Equal. That word had stuck with him, apparently not with them. My hands moved on their own, dialing the number at the bottom of the email. I left a message. Hi, this is Melanie Conway. I did not request any beneficiary update. Please call me as soon as possible. Then I pulled out the worn binder labeled Dad, legal from my bookshelf. Inside, his will, his original trust documents, and a flash drive I hadn't touched since the funeral. I plugged it in. Files opened like old ghosts, scans, letters, even a voicemail. I clicked play. You've always carried more than your share, Mel. Don't think I don't see it. One day that kind of heart will come back to you. I sat very still. It wasn't just the money, it was the lie that hurt more. There had been a form, dated 6 months ago, signed by Sharon and my mother, no mention of me, and in the comment section, Melanie Conway has declined contact with the family, wishes to remain estranged. What? I hadn't declined anything. I had been cut out. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I just breathed, slowly, measured. I turned off the voicemail, lit a small candle on the table, and opened a new folder on my laptop. Conway case, personal. Inside, I started placing files. Exhibit A, screenshot of the trust form showing my removal. Exhibit B, screenshot of Sharon's text, "You wanted out, stay out." Exhibit C, my original bank record from the Maldives trip, billed under my name. Exhibit D, that voicemail from Dad. My fingers moved faster than my mind. I wasn't sure what this folder would become, but I knew I wasn't keeping it in the dark anymore. Maybe it wasn't for revenge, maybe it was for clarity, or maybe just proof. At least, that's what I thought. Until my phone buzzed. Nina, my cousin. I hadn't heard her voice in months. I answered cautiously, "Hey." There was a long pause on the other end. Then her voice, soft, familiar. "Hi, Mel. Listen, my mom told me what happened at the gathering, about the photos, the seat, the loan thing." She sighed. "Just wanted you to know I don't buy it, not for a second." My throat tightened, but I didn't speak. "I remember how you used to drive Aunt Carol to her chemo appointments, how you helped Sharon move 3 times. People forget fast, but I don't." I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. "I'm here," she said. "Whatever you need. I've got you." It was the first time in days someone had spoken to me like I wasn't a problem. I looked at the open folder on my screen, the candle flickering beside me. And in that moment, I knew I wasn't going to stay quiet anymore. By the time I stood from my kitchen table that morning, the printer still hummed behind me, spitting out the last page of the trust documents. I'd hardly slept. My coffee had gone cold, untouched, but I had what I needed, and that was enough. I slipped the printed papers into a slim black folder, tucked it into my tote, and headed out into the gray, rainy morning. The clouds pressed low over the city, like the sky itself was holding its breath. I didn't grab an umbrella. I needed the rain on my face. Something about it steadied me, washed off the nerves, the doubt, the memories. It was a Sunday, a day they usually spent laughing over omelets and mimosas, but not me. Not anymore. I took the elevator to the 18th floor of a small downtown office building and stepped into the calm, clean space of Lords March's office. She looked like a woman who'd stared down 1,000 greedy families and never blinked. "You must be Rowena," she said, offering her hand. "Let's get to work." I handed her the folder without a word. She opened it, scanning quickly, page after page of trust amendments, notarized signatures, old bank records, screenshots. Her brow arched slightly at some parts, but she didn't interrupt. Only after she reached the end did she close the file gently. "You're doing this the right way," she said, folding her hands. "This isn't just a family issue. This is legally actionable." She flipped to a highlighted clause in the original trust document, the one Dad signed years ago. "Any removal of a beneficiary shall require certified written notice and the signed consent of all named heirs," she read aloud. "Your signature isn't on anything, nor is there any proof you were even notified?" I stared at the clause. I remembered Dad's voice so clearly. "This is for the girls, equally. Nothing will come between you two." "They didn't just go behind your back," Lords continued. They violated the very structure your father set in place." Her tone was steady, professional, but I could hear something colder beneath it, anger, not just for me, for how often she must have seen this play out. I leaned forward. "And this part here, where they claim I'm estranged, that I declined contact?" She nodded. "That language was inserted as justification. But see here?" She tapped her pen to a date. "This was filed while your card was still being used for household expenses. That's provable misuse. They claimed you weren't involved while using your money." I breathed out, slow. "So what are my options?" "We start with a formal request for independent trustee review. We flag the fraud, the breach of clause, and the financial contradiction. If they contest it, we move to deposition." I didn't flinch. "How soon can we file?" "Today." While she stepped out to prepare the paperwork, I sat alone by the window, watching rain draw long streaks down the glass. The room was quiet except for the muffled hum of the copier and the occasional ring of a distant phone. Out of habit, I pulled out my phone and opened Instagram. First image, Sharon at the Garden House, a high-end brunch spot near the marina. She wore a pale pink blazer and a smug little smile, one manicured hand poised above a towering seafood platter. The caption read, "Girls' Day with Mom, blessed Hamar gratitude." I scrolled further, lobster tails, bellinis, golden cutlery. My mother leaned in beside her, looking positively glowing in pearls. Below the photo, Aunt Louisa had commented, "Such a shame about the drama. Wish she would just let it go." No names, just that vague she, me. I stared at the photo for a moment longer, then turned off the screen and tucked my phone away. I wasn't going to get pulled back into that game. Lourdes returned with a small stack of forms. "If you'd like, we can also file a temporary freeze on trust disbursements," she said, "while it's under review." "Do it," I said, "and audit the spending, every penny." She smiled faintly, almost like she approved. "Sign here and here. One more on the last page." I didn't hesitate. I signed steadily, line after line. Not a single call, not a single post, just pen on paper, one signature at a time. A quiet unraveling of everything they thought they could hide. When we finished, I sat back and stared at the papers. Lourdes slid them into a bright red folder and sealed it. "That's it?" I asked quietly. "For now," she said, "but this is how it starts." As I gathered my things, my eyes landed on the edge of my wallet peeking from my tote. Tucked behind an old insurance card was a small receipt. CVS, $6,400. The last big payment I'd ever made for Sharon. She had cried over the phone, told me her IVF copay had just shot up, that Tom's bonus hadn't come through yet. I hadn't told anyone, not even my closest friends. I just paid it, silently, because it felt like the right thing to do at the time. No thanks, no mention. Now, just another name erased from the trust. Another voice dismissed as too emotional. I looked at that receipt for a long moment, then folded it gently, and placed it in the side pocket of the red legal folder. Exhibit C. By the time they'd finished dessert, their world had already started crumbling. It was still drizzling when I got back to my apartment. The city felt hushed, like it was holding its breath. Same as me. I kicked off my shoes, dropped my umbrella at the door, and hung my coat on the rack. Then I walked straight to my kitchen counter, opened my laptop, and sat down with the kind of quiet that only comes when you've finally stopped explaining yourself. I didn't need coffee. My mind was wide awake, sharp, focused. The screen glowed to life with the financial dashboard I'd logged into 100 times before, but never like this. Never with the full weight of clarity behind my actions. I started with the Bundy family shared account. It used to be our joint family pot, where I'd drop in contributions like birthday gifts, medical copays, groceries when Mom claimed she forgot her card again. My last deposit? $12,480. Half of it was supposed to cover Sharon's property tax that she accidentally let lapse. I hovered over the transfer button. No music, no drama, just a deep, still inhale. Then I moved the entire amount into my newly formed LLC account. I'd named it Safe House Ventures, my little fortress. Seconds later, the shared account zeroed out. I didn't even blink. Somewhere, in a sunny kitchen full of expensive ceramic and smug brunch vibes, I knew my mother's phone had just pinged. I clicked over to the education fund, the one I helped create when Sharon started planning for her daughter's college years. Years ago, she begged me to match her savings just to make the interest more attractive to the bank. Back then, I agreed, thinking family meant sacrifice. The fund was in both our names, but I was the only one who ever actually deposited money. That made the legal structure simple, clean. The money was mine. I moved it too. Clean break. While the funds rerouted, I sipped green tea. I didn't feel triumphant, just right. Like something long overdue had finally shifted into balance. "This isn't revenge," I murmured into the steam. "It's correction." And then, I remembered something. A fragment from a conversation with Dad years ago. It had floated into my mind like a leaf falling through fog. Something about a credit union. Some account he set up under my Social Security when I got my first real job. I dug through old emails, trying combinations of passwords I hadn't touched since my 20s. It took a few tries, but eventually, I got in. There it was. A dormant account under Dad's name, but with me listed as the sole beneficiary. $18,200, untouched, quiet, waiting. There was a single line in the metadata. It read, "If they ever turn on you, use this." I just sat there, hand over my mouth. I could almost hear his voice, calm, steady, protective in that way he always was when Mom wasn't in the room. I didn't cry, but my throat tightened. The moment broke when my phone lit up on the table. First, a call from Mom's cell. I let it ring out, then Sharon, then Aunt Louisa. Then the texts started flooding in. "Did you touch the trust account?" "What is going on, Vespera?" This isn't how family solves things. I turned the phone face down and walked to the window. The rain was steady now, gentle, cleansing. I cracked the window open and let the cool air move through my space. My lungs expanded for the first time in what felt like weeks. Every purchase, every holiday, every emergency I covered. I'd told myself I was being generous, but deep down, I think I believed I could buy my way into being seen. That maybe, just maybe, they'd finally treat me like more than a backup plan. I was wrong, and I was done trying. A notification buzzed, this time not from them, but from Lords. Lords March. They just emailed. They're panicking. "You have leverage." I picked up my phone again and typed back, "Me. Good. I don't want to destroy them. I just want them to see me as more than their ATM." I sent it. Set the phone down. The transfers were done. The trust was now under legal review, and I hadn't posted a single thing. Not a quote, not a hint, not even a passive-aggressive story like Sharon loved doing. The silence was enough. But I had no idea Sharon was already planning a counterattack. By Tuesday evening, I had convinced myself, just barely, that maybe they were trying. Maybe all the drama had worn them down too, and they wanted peace. Or maybe I just needed to believe that. At 4:42 p.m., Sharon sent a group message to me and Mom. "Dinner's on us. Let's just talk." 7 p.m., Caravento, just us, no pressure. Short, clinical, not how Sharon usually wrote. But I stared at that line. Just us. Longer than I should have. For a second, I wondered if Dad would have wanted me to go. And that was enough. I took my time getting ready. Navy wrap dress, the one that never failed me. A soft cardigan, light mascara, lip balm, no lipstick. I left the necklace Dad gave me in the drawer. No distractions, just clarity. Before leaving, I tucked a flash drive into my clutch, the one with all the records. Bank transfers, emails, and the metadata trails they never expected me to save. I wasn't hoping for war, but I wouldn't walk in unarmed. The rain had finally slowed to a drizzle, just enough to streak the streetlights and make the road glisten. I parked across from Caravento, checked the group text again, same name, same time, and walked toward the host stand. The restaurant smelled like lemon butter and rosemary. Soft jazz floated beneath the low murmur of evening chatter. Couples in quiet conversation, a table of older friends laughing gently over wine. It should have felt like peace. But when I gave the host Sharon's name, his smile dimmed. Sorry, we don't have any reservation under that name. I blinked. Can you check again? Maybe it's under Bundy? He tapped a few keys, squinted, then shook his head. I've actually had 3 people call today to confirm that name, but no reservation ever showed up in our system. He was polite, but firm, and he clearly didn't recognize me as one of the previous callers. I stood there a moment longer, trying to process the gap between what I expected and what was happening. Then I stepped aside, pulled out my phone and called Sharon. No answer. Called Mom, straight to voicemail. I opened the message again, scrolled up. The words hadn't changed, but now they felt surgical, less like an invitation, more like a move. That's when Lourdes texted. Cease and desist just filed. They're claiming misappropriation of shared family assets. I froze. Her next message followed seconds later. From Griffin and Kane. That name ring a bell? My stomach dropped. Griffin and Kane was run by Uncle Derek, Mom's first cousin, retired from litigation but still licensed, still willing, apparently. So that was the real reason for tonight. The dinner had never been about peace. It was about distraction. Get me out of the house. While they filed behind my back, I stepped outside. The air had turned colder, the sidewalk damp against the soles of my shoes. I walked 2 blocks down to the edge of the plaza, where a bench faced west. The sun was dipping below the palm-lined ridge, casting the sky in bands of gold and bruised purple. Pasadena had never looked lonelier. I sat down on the curb, clutch still in hand. The jazz from the restaurant trailed behind me like a memory. My phone buzzed again. Sharon, finally. Just a text. You did this to yourself. I stared at the screen for a long time, not typing, not responding, just letting the silence settle between my ribs. I thought of every holiday I'd paid for, every tuition bill I'd split, every emergency where I was the first call, the last resort, and the one expected not to complain. And here I was, ambushed by my own blood, with a cease and desist, no less. I breathed deep, let the cold air fill my lungs, and I felt something shift, not rage, not panic, something colder, cleaner, like the rain had rinsed away the last traces of hope. I stood up, stretched out my spine, and tapped Lourdes' name. Let's flip the switch, I said when she picked up. She paused. You want to escalate? We're done defending. Time to move forward. There was a beat of silence. Then she replied, Okay, I'll start compiling the bundle. I've got the flash drive, I said. We're not hiding anymore. I watched as a car pulled up near the curb. 2 teenagers climbed out, laughing, arms linked. I remembered being that age, still thinking family would always be your safest place. How naive I'd been. Lourdes, I said, tomorrow morning, we release it all. All of it? She asked. Emails, spreadsheets, affidavit, no redactions. I slipped my phone back into my coat pocket. The night air was sharper now, but I didn't feel cold anymore. They wanted war? Then let them see what it feels like to start one with the wrong daughter. By the time sunlight spilled across the kitchen tiles, I had already brewed coffee and opened my laptop. The living room was quiet, save for the faint hum of the fridge. My heart didn't pound. My hands didn't tremble. I had gone past fear. What I felt now was precision. At exactly 8:03 a.m., Lourdes clicked send. The first batch went out to the CPA Licensing Board, the State Financial Oversight Division, and the whistleblower submission inboxes of 2 local regulatory agencies. Everything was neatly filed, time-stamped emails, scans of falsified grant applications, screenshots of altered balance sheets, and a 22-page sworn affidavit I had stayed up all night reviewing. At 8:19 a.m., Lords uploaded the folder to a secure drive and shared it with an anonymous, watchdog-style financial blog that often spotlighted corruption inside trusted families and nonprofits. By 9:15 a.m., the story had gone live under the headline, "Inside the Charity: How a Local Director and Her Mother Forged Faith into Fraud." I leaned back in my chair, the sunlight warming my arms, and watched the ripple begin. First, it was quiet. Then my phone buzzed, once, twice, then it didn't stop. 3 voicemails from unknown numbers, 4 emails marked urgent, 1 LinkedIn notification. An old colleague had shared the blog post. I opened it. I always wondered why the audit notes were incomplete. This explains a lot. The post had already gained 6,000 views. By noon, it had crossed 18,000. A Reddit thread emerged. One user even claimed they'd interned under Sharon's team and had been let go after asking too many questions. I didn't respond to any of them. I just sat, watching it all unfold, the way you watch a storm crawl across the sky after years of drought. It was loud, but I felt quiet. Around 1:30, my phone rang. Not a random number. My aunt's name flashed across the screen. I hesitated, then answered. "Sweetheart?" Her voice came through, frazzled. "I just saw the blog. What's going on? Why would you do this to your own sister and your mother?" Her voice trailed off. I kept my tone calm. "Why did they do this to theirs?" There was a silence I didn't fill. "They're saying you hacked things. That this is all made up. They forged financial statements, Aunt Cora, twice, and Mom co-signed a fake community grant to redirect money. I didn't make this happen. I just stopped hiding it." More silence. Then softly, "I don't know what to believe anymore." I let that sit. By early evening, things spiraled further. Sharon's nonprofit pulled its online donation link due to maintenance. The page banner disappeared. A contact at the local food bank posted a vague message. "We take fiscal integrity seriously." No names, but the timing was clear. Later that evening, I got a message from a longtime board member at our mother's church. Just one line. "Is it true she co-signed the forged paperwork?" I didn't reply. I simply forwarded the affidavit. At 6:47 p.m., Sharon texted me. "You've destroyed Mom. Are you happy now?" I stared at it, not angry, not even surprised. It was always easier for her to flip the mirror than face it. My reply was short. "You did that. I just turned on the light." Then I silenced my phone and set it face down. Around 9 p.m., Lords forwarded an email from a regional newspaper editor. They were putting together a feature on family-based financial abuse and wanted to interview me. Said they'd never had a source submit so much verified documentation up front. I read the subject line twice, then archived it. I didn't need a headline. I needed the damage to stop. The world was finally seeing what I had lived through in silence. And tomorrow I would show up at the final family mediation, with every receipt I'd ever kept. I walked through the glass doors of the mediation office with the same box I'd packed the night before. Simple cardboard, no drama, just facts. The receptionist gave me a quick glance, then motioned toward the room on the left. Inside, the air was already dense. Sharon was seated with her arms crossed, wearing a beige suit that looked 2 sizes too tight and a scowl that didn't quite hide the nerves behind it. Our mother sat to her right, dabbing under her eyes with a tissue, her makeup blotchy, like it had been applied in a rush, or maybe after crying. The mediator, a woman named Jacqueline, who introduced herself at the preliminary session as impartial but efficient, nodded at me, expression unreadable. "Let's try to keep this civil," she said, placing a legal pad before her. I set the box down next to my chair and sat. No words. I just opened the lid and began pulling the documents out, one by one, laying them in neat rows like stepping stones across the middle of the table. Bank transfer logs, Venmo screenshots, scanned rent checks every month for 7 years, college tuition receipts from a decade ago, signed by me, paid by me, for someone else's child. I said nothing for the first 5 minutes. Let the papers speak. The final folder was thin, but it held the sharpest edge. I slid it forward. Form 1099 MISCs, I said, filed under my name. I didn't submit them, but they list payments I never received, because I wasn't supposed to receive them. They were claimed as charitable donations by my parents. On years I was living paycheck to paycheck. Silence. Sharon leaned forward, squinting. What is this? Our mother flinched. Lords, why would you bring this here? The mediator held up a hand. I need a moment to review. She flipped through the pages slowly at first, then faster. She paused, looked up, then back down. Her face didn't change, but her tone did. This is highly irregular, she said, measured. These forms are signed. This could be seen as misrepresentation to the IRS? Possibly more. Mom's voice cracked. We thought you'd be grateful. We just needed help. You always had more than Sharon. You didn't even notice the money. I looked at her, not angry anymore, not even bitter, just done. You didn't ask, you took, then turned around and made me feel like I wasn't doing enough. Sharon scoffed. This isn't about paperwork. You're trying to ruin us. This is vindictive. No, I said quietly. It's closure. You hurt me for years and I kept showing up, paying, covering, staying quiet. But this is me stopping. The mediator cleared her throat. Ms. Lords, would you like to pursue legal action? These documents, if verified, could open a federal investigation. I sat straighter, hands folded in my lap. No, I said. I don't want revenge. I just want them out of my life. From my bag, I pulled the final set of forms. The official cease and desist against further financial contact, the account closure confirmations, and the last page, my signature on a legal document titled Consent to Terminate Financial Relationship. I passed it to the mediator. And this ends here. For the first time, Sharon looked speechless. My mother's mouth opened, but nothing came out. The mediator nodded, slowly. Understood. We'll record these for the file. The session ended not with slamming doors or shouting, but with an almost eerie quiet. They stood and left first. I didn't even watch them go. Back at my apartment in Silver Lake, I didn't celebrate. I didn't post anything online. I didn't call anyone. I lit a candle, not for any symbolic reason, just because I liked the scent, and sank into the couch. Then I noticed the blinking voicemail light. I played it. It was from my grandmother, saved from years ago. Her voice was gentle, scratchy with age. You don't owe them everything to be good, she said. I listened twice, and that was the moment it all settled. The grief, the anger, the shame. They weren't gone, but they were quiet now, and I could finally breathe.